The small garage stood alone at the far end of the town where the road lost its shine and the air smelled of dust and metal. It was not a modern place with bright signs or clean glass windows, but it carried a quiet strength that came from years of honest work. Inside the garage worked a woman named Maya who had learned early that machines and people often broke for the same reasons. They were pushed too hard and ignored for too long. She moved through the space with calm focus, touching tools like old friends and listening closely to every sound an engine made. The garage was her world, and she treated it with care and respect every single day. Maya had inherited the garage from her father, who had believed that work done right spoke louder than words. After he passed, she kept the place running the same way he had taught her, never rushing repairs and never taking advantage of anyone. People in town trusted her even if they rarely said it out loud. Some came because they needed help, others came because they felt safe there. Maya did not ask many questions about people's lives, but she noticed details. She noticed hands that shook, eyes that avoided mirrors, and voices that carried old weight. These details told her more than words ever could. That afternoon was slow, with only the hum of the lights and the sound of tools moving across metal. Then an old pickup truck rolled into the yard, coughing softly as if tired from the journey. The paint was faded and scratched, the body bent in places that spoke of years of hard use. The truck did not look broken beyond repair, but it looked worn in a way that could not be hidden. Maya watched it carefully as it came to a stop, sensing the story it carried before anyone even stepped out. The man who climbed down from the driver's seat moved with effort and control. His name was Tom, though Maya did not know it yet. His back stayed stiff as if bending had once come with consequences. His hair was gray and neatly trimmed, and his clothes were clean but old, chosen for function rather than comfort. He stood for a moment, looking at the garage like someone unsure if they belonged there. When he finally walked inside, his steps were slow and measured, as if he was used to watching his surroundings at all times. Tom spoke quietly and carefully, explaining that the truck had been acting up for weeks. He said it stalled without warning and struggled on small hills. He admitted that money was tight, but he needed the truck to keep moving through his days. He did not complain or ask for special treatment. He simply handed over the keys and waited for an answer. Maya listened without interrupting and nodded once, telling him she would take a look. Her voice was calm and steady, offering no judgment and no promise beyond honest work. While the truck cooled, Tom sat outside on a wooden bench near the garage door. He kept his jacket folded beside him and his hands resting on his knees. His eyes followed every car that passed, every shadow that moved. Loud sounds made his shoulders tighten slightly, though he tried to hide it. He did not use his phone or distract himself. He simply waited, patient and silent, as if waiting had become part of who he was. Maya noticed all of this through the open doorway without staring. When Maya lifted the hood, the problem revealed itself quickly. Worn parts struggled to work together, and small issues had been ignored until they grew larger. It was not a cheap repair, but it was not impossible either. She worked carefully, replacing what she could and adjusting what needed attention. As she worked, she thought about how many people kept going until they nearly stopped, just like this engine. She cleaned her hands, tightened the last piece, and started the truck again. This time the engine settled into a steady rhythm, strong enough to keep going. Maya walked to the counter to write the bill, her pen hovering over the paper. She thought about Tom sitting outside, about the way he spoke and the way he waited without complaint. She thought about how the truck had clearly carried more than tools and supplies in its life. After a long moment, she crossed out the number and folded the paper. The decision felt quiet but firm inside her, like a truth that did not need explanation. When Tom came back inside, Maya handed him the keys and told him the truck was ready. He asked how much it would cost, his voice low and careful. She shook her head and said there was no charge. For a moment, Tom did not respond, his face frozen in disbelief. He asked again, slower this time, making sure he understood correctly. Maya smiled gently and told him that sometimes help was not meant to be counted. Tom's eyes filled as he tried to thank her, his words catching before they could come out smoothly. He nodded instead, holding the keys tightly as if afraid they might disappear. He shook her hand with both of his grip firm but grateful. Without saying anything more, he walked back to the truck and drove away, the engine sounding stronger than before. Maya watched him leave, believing the moment would fade into another quiet memory. 3 days passed, and life at the garage returned to its usual rhythm. Maya opened the doors early one morning, expecting another calm day of routine repairs. The air was still cool when a deep engine sound rolled through the street, heavier than anything she was used to hearing. A flatbed trailer turned into her lot, carrying something large and carefully secured. Maya stood still, her curiosity rising as the truck came to a stop. On the windshield of the truck pulling the trailer, an envelope was taped neatly in place. Her name was written on it, in careful handwriting. Maya felt a strange pull in her chest as she stepped forward, unaware that the simple repair she had offered freely was about to return to her in a way she never expected. Maya stood near the open garage doors as the flatbed trailer settled into the yard, its heavy presence changing the quiet morning air. The engine shut down slowly, leaving behind a thick silence that felt different from the usual calm she knew. The trailer carried a large object covered tightly with a gray tarp, secured by straps that had been placed with care. Nothing about it felt rushed or careless. Maya wiped her hands on her cloth and walked closer, her steps steady but her thoughts moving faster than usual. The envelope taped to the windshield caught her attention again, and she reached for it with a feeling she could not fully explain. The paper felt firm and clean in her hands, and her name had been written slowly as if the writer wanted to be sure it was clear. Maya opened the envelope carefully and unfolded the letter inside, reading each line with growing focus. The words were simple but heavy with meaning, explaining that the writer was the man whose truck she had repaired days ago. He wrote that help was rare in his life and kindness without cost was something he had not expected. He said he believed debts were not always paid with money but with purpose. As Maya finished reading, she felt her throat tighten in a way she had not felt in years. The driver of the flatbed stepped down and waited respectfully, saying nothing while Maya held the letter. When she finally looked up, he explained that the delivery was part of a promise the sender had made long ago. He said the item belonged to Maya now, and his job was only to bring it safely. Maya nodded slowly, her eyes moving back to the covered shape on the trailer. She did not ask many questions, but her mind worked through every possibility. Nothing like this had ever happened at her garage before, and the weight of the moment pressed gently against her chest. The driver loosened the straps and pulled back the tarp with careful movements. Beneath it sat a restored vintage truck frame mounted on a strong platform, its metal polished and clean. It was not just a vehicle but a project completed with patience and pride. Every bolt looked placed with intention, every surface treated with respect. Maya stepped closer, running her fingers along the edge as if confirming it was real. The craftsmanship spoke of long nights and steady hands, the kind of work done by someone who understood effort and value deeply. As Maya studied the truck, memories of her father filled her thoughts. He had spoken often about restoring old machines not because they were worth money but because they carried stories. This truck carried a story too, one shaped by time and silence. The letter mentioned that the sender had worked on it during quiet hours, using skills learned long before and refined through discipline. He wrote that rebuilding it gave him peace when the world felt too loud. Maya felt a deep connection to those words, understanding the healing power of focused work. Neighbors began to gather near the edge of the yard, drawn by curiosity and the unusual sight. They whispered among themselves, pointing gently but keeping distance. Maya noticed familiar faces filled with surprise and respect. Some knew her well, others only by reputation, but all sensed that something meaningful was unfolding. Maya stood tall, though emotion moved quietly beneath her calm expression. She had never done her work for attention, yet now attention found her without warning. The moment felt private even as it happened in public view. Maya read the letter again, this time slower, letting each sentence settle. The man had written that the truck was meant to help her grow the garage or choose a new path if she wished. He explained that giving it away felt right, that passing forward kindness was the only way he knew how to thank her. There was no request, no expectation of contact, only gratitude and respect. Maya folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope, holding it close as if it were fragile. As the flatbed driver prepared to leave, Maya thanked him quietly and watched as the trailer pulled away, leaving the restored truck behind. The yard felt changed, fuller somehow. She stood alone with the gift, surrounded by tools and familiar walls that suddenly seemed smaller than before. The garage had always been a place of repair, but now it felt like a place of transformation. Maya took a deep breath and turned toward the truck, knowing this was only the beginning of something she did not yet understand. Later that evening, after the neighbors had gone and the sun dipped low, Maya locked the garage doors and sat beside the restored frame. She thought about the man who had trusted her with his truck, and how that small decision had returned in such a powerful way. She did not know where he was now, or if she would ever see him again. What she knew was that kindness had a weight and shape she could feel clearly in that moment. The quiet garage held her thoughts as she prepared for the changes that were sure to come next. The next morning arrived quietly, and the garage felt different the moment Maya unlocked the door. The restored truck sat where the flatbed had left it, catching the early light in a way that made its clean lines stand out. Maya moved around it slowly, taking in every detail again as if the night might have changed something. She noticed how carefully the parts fit together and how the structure carried both strength and patience. The space seemed fuller now, not crowded but alive with possibility. Maya felt a steady pull to understand what this gift could become and what it asked of her in return. Maya spent hours examining the truck frame with the same care she gave every repair. She checked joints and mounts, tracing the work with thoughtful eyes. Each section told a quiet story of effort given without rush. She imagined the man working alone, choosing each step with purpose, finding calm in the order of metal and motion. The garage echoed softly as she moved tools, and the sound felt familiar and grounding. With every inspection, her respect for the unseen builder grew stronger. She realized this was not only a machine but a message shaped by hands that understood struggle. As the day moved on, people from town began to stop by again, drawn by curiosity and word of mouth. They stood near the entrance, speaking softly and watching Maya work. Some asked questions about the truck, while others simply nodded in approval. Maya answered when needed but kept her focus steady. She felt no urge to explain everything because some things were meant to be felt rather than described. The presence of others reminded her that kindness often travels farther than expected. The garage had become a quiet gathering place, even without intention. During a break, Maya sat on the same wooden bench where Tom had waited days earlier. She held the letter again, reading it slowly and carefully. The words felt heavier now, settling into her thoughts with greater meaning. She understood that the truck was not meant to sit untouched or admired from a distance. It was meant to move and serve, just like the help she had given without thought of return. The idea made her chest feel warm and uneasy at the same time. Responsibility often arrived wrapped in gratitude. Maya decided to continue the restoration, not to change what was done but to finish what had been started. She cleaned parts and adjusted small details, making the truck ready for the road ahead. Each movement felt deliberate and calm, like a conversation between her hands and the metal. Time passed quietly as the sun shifted outside, and the garage filled with steady purpose. She found comfort in the rhythm of work, the same comfort she had always known. In that focus, she felt closer to both her father and the unknown man who had trusted her. Late in the afternoon, a man named Leo stopped by, someone Maya had known since childhood. He looked at the truck with wide eyes and a thoughtful smile. He spoke about how rare it was to see something given freely with no conditions. His words were simple but honest, and they stayed with Maya after he left. She realized that the truck carried more than parts and metal. It carried an example that others could see and feel. The thought made her pause and consider the path forming in front of her. As evening approached, Maya locked the doors and stayed behind alone once more. She turned off most of the lights, leaving only a soft glow over the truck. The quiet wrapped around her, allowing her thoughts to move freely. She wondered if the man who sent the gift felt peace knowing it had arrived safely. She hoped he did, even if he never heard from her again. Gratitude did not always need words to exist. Sometimes it lived best through action. That night, Maya made a decision that settled gently but firmly within her. She would use the truck to help others who came to the garage with more need than money. She would let it become a symbol of second chances, just as it had become one for her. The idea felt right and true, matching the values she had lived by for years. She did not see it as charity but as balance. What was given freely should move freely as well. When Maya finally left the garage, she looked back one last time before closing the door. The restored truck stood quietly, waiting for its next chapter. Maya felt a calm certainty that the story was far from over. What had begun as a simple repair had grown into something larger and deeper. The road ahead was unclear, but it felt honest and full of meaning. And for the first time in a long while, Maya looked forward to what the next day might bring. The morning light entered the garage slowly and rested on the restored truck, as if acknowledging its presence. Maya moved through the space with quiet focus, feeling a steady purpose guiding her actions. She opened the doors wide, allowing fresh air and distant town sounds to mix with the familiar smell of oil and metal. The truck no longer felt like a surprise but like a responsibility she had accepted fully. Every glance toward it reminded her of the promise she made to herself the night before. She knew this day would mark the first time the gift would be put to use. The thought made her nervous but also calm in a way she had not expected. Word traveled faster than Maya realized, and before noon a woman named Anna arrived with a small car that struggled to start. Anna looked tired and carried worry in her eyes as she explained her situation quietly. Maya listened without judgment, just as she always did, and guided her inside. The car needed parts and time more than Anna could afford. Maya felt the weight of the decision she had made the night before settle into action. She used the restored truck to collect parts from a nearby yard, saving Anna both cost and stress. Anna watched in silence as kindness unfolded in front of her. As the day continued, others came, some with small repairs, others simply curious. The garage filled with quiet conversations and shared understanding. Maya noticed how people lingered longer than usual, feeling safe in the space. The restored truck moved in and out of the yard with steady strength. Each trip felt like a continuation of the letter she had read so many times. Maya felt no pride, only balance, as if things were returning to where they belonged. The garage felt larger than its walls for the first time. Later in the afternoon, a familiar figure appeared near the entrance. Maya recognized Tom immediately, though his posture seemed lighter than before. He stood still, watching the activity without interrupting. Maya felt her chest tighten, but she did not rush toward him. When their eyes met, he nodded slowly, carrying gratitude without words. The moment passed quietly, without explanation or thanks spoken aloud. Both seemed to understand that nothing more was needed. Tom stayed only a short while, watching the truck move again, helping others. Before leaving, he placed a small box on the counter without comment. Inside were old tools carefully cleaned and wrapped. Maya understood their meaning immediately and accepted them with respect. These were not gifts meant to impress but to continue work that mattered. Tom left as quietly as he arrived, blending back into the road beyond the garage. Maya watched until he was gone, then returned to her work without hesitation. As evening approached, the garage slowly emptied and silence returned. Maya cleaned her hands and leaned against the restored truck, feeling the day settle into her bones. She thought about how a simple act had grown into something that touched many lives. The truck was no longer just metal and labor but a moving promise. Maya felt a quiet strength knowing she had chosen the right path. The garage lights cast long shadows that felt comforting rather than lonely. She locked the doors with confidence rather than habit. That night Maya sat at her desk and planned new ways to help without overreaching. She wrote nothing down but let ideas form naturally. The restored truck waited outside, ready for another day of purpose. Maya felt no need to rush the future, knowing it would arrive on its own. What mattered was continuing with honesty and care. The story unfolding around her was shaped by choices, not chance. And she knew one more chapter still waited ahead. The final morning arrived without announcement, yet it carried a sense of quiet completion that Maya felt as soon as she opened the garage doors. The restored truck waited outside, already marked by light dust and signs of use that felt right rather than damaging. Maya walked around it slowly, noticing how it now belonged to the rhythm of the town instead of standing apart. People waved as they passed, and some stopped simply to smile. The garage no longer felt like a place people visited only when things broke. It had become a place where trust lived and where effort carried meaning. Maya felt grounded in a way she had never felt before. Over the following weeks the truck continued to serve without rest. It carried tool supplies and sometimes people who needed help getting somewhere important. Maya never announced what she was doing and never explained her reasons. Those who received help understood without words and often returned later to offer something in return. Sometimes it was food, sometimes it was time, sometimes it was silence and respect. The balance kept itself without rules or plans. The town slowly changed in small ways that were hard to measure but easy to feel. One afternoon Maya received a letter delivered without a return name. Inside were only a few lines written carefully expressing peace and closure. The writer said the work he had started was now complete and that seeing it live on brought him calm. There was no request to meet and no expectation of response. Maya folded the letter and placed it beside the first one, keeping them together. She felt no sadness, only gratitude and acceptance. Some connections were meant to guide rather than remain. As seasons shifted, the garage became a quiet anchor for many. Young people stopped by to learn, older ones came to share stories. Maya taught when asked and listened when needed. The restored truck became part of daily life, never celebrated loudly yet always noticed. Its presence reminded people that effort given freely could travel far. Maya watched this unfold without pride. She understood now that meaning grows when it is shared. One evening as the sun settled low, Maya stood alone outside the garage. The road stretched ahead, calm and open, just like her thoughts. She remembered the day the old pickup first rolled in, coughing and tired. That moment felt distant yet connected, like the beginning of a long thread. She smiled softly, knowing she would make the same choice again. Some decisions did not need reward to be right. They only needed to be true. Maya locked the garage and walked toward her home, carrying a steady peace. The town lights flickered on behind her, and the truck rested quietly near the door. Tomorrow would bring new needs and new chances to help. She did not know what stories would arrive next. What she knew was that kindness once given does not disappear. It changes shape and keeps moving. Just like the road stretching forward without end.